I did what was almost a showcase video on this Westclox Model S recently, but after test running it, I mean, you can hear the sound it's making. It clearly needs some help. So, we're going to have to go in there and do something about that, because that is not... You don't want your clock to be that loud. Yeah, again, if this wasn't a special kitty clock, I wouldn't have even given this thing the time of day. But you know, because of what this is and because of who it's going to, I'm gonna try and give this a shot. And if I don't do anything with it, it is never gonna be plugged in ever. That is just gonna sit unplugged because it is so darn loud. And yeah, so I'm gonna try and pop this thing out of there. I'm gonna try these all these little corners here. If I can, you know, all those little guys there. These hold this piece of plastic in, so we're gonna try that. And that clip slides up, so I'm thinking this somehow pops out of there. That's my master plan so far. So I'm not even entirely sure what I did, but this, what I was thinking here was that front plate. I'll turn the light off here in a second, but this plate here, I thought this whole thing was holding all of this in, and it kind of is, but I thought this was part of that. And somehow I was able to pop this out of place. Again, I don't even know what I did now. And now I have access to the movement. So what's not amazing about this is it's totally plastic, so I'm not going to bother totally dismantling this. I just want to oil wherever it is that is making such a ruckus. And if I just get my phone in its tripod here, very quickly, very subtly, like I didn't just need to... Oh, there we go. Okay, so if I do that, put that there, I can show you, or we can have a look together, I suppose, of what is going on here. So something, I'm assuming just the main synchronous motor is just completely dry and is not, well, it's just making a racket, because this would not have been like that when it was new at all. So after just spending a few minutes on Google there, I've discovered that 3-in-1 oil probably isn't the best for plastic, at least the petroleum-based stuff. But this synthetic mobile oil probably should be fine. So I'll just dab some on here. We'll see where we kind of wind up. Okay, I've just gotten some in there. And we'll see if that shuts this thing up. I know it was already running quieter without the case, but still, we're going to just try it anyway. I guess I'll try it face down. Does that make any difference? Or how does that make any difference? Okay. I like how it switches direction. I know that's a thing these can and can't do sometimes. Yeah, do not touch the live wires, Greg. That'd be an advisable idea. Well, it's quiet now. There may be some other spots to dab some of this stuff. For those of you who don't know or can't remember or whatever, this is Mobil OW-40. It's in a different bottle. That's not the bottle it comes in. And it is synthetic motor oil, which I'm using in this case for plastic. Let's see here. We'll dab it everywhere else that there's any kind of gears moving or anything like that. I see that steel and put some on there. That's probably okay. I don't think I need to put any there. Boy, oh boy, if anything beyond oiling it was wrong with this movement, you've got these weird little, I don't know what those are. Those are like those bent over, melted over, I think they're just bent over plastic pillars or whatever. Those are almost like rivets. Got these almost plastic rivets happening. And that is how this thing is held together. Thank goodness this is such a simple design, or else again you'd be kind of screwed on this. I'm gonna put some oil down that pivot because I see that's actually made of metal. So I'm going to put some in here. There we go. Okay. There she is. Hope to goodness we can get this thing back together properly. But yeah, this is what these Westclox Model S motors look like. That is what these are all about. Not a terrible... Well, I mean, you can't take it apart, basically, unless you want to be really adventurous. There's no reason for me to take this one apart, so I'm not going to. There's the coil. I haven't really addressed that at all, but, yeah, there it is in its own little box. Yeah, this basically doesn't come apart because... Not necessarily because it wasn't made to, but just because they didn't have that in mind for this movement. They just, you know, were interested in making a cheap clock to build rather than a serviceable one. If they really wanted this to be serviceable, they would have installed screws every which way, and you would be actually, you know, it would have been, it also wouldn't have been made of plastic. I almost guarantee that. That's probably the first thing they wouldn't do with this. But it still lasted over 20 years, so that's pretty good. We'll plug it in one more time, just to see how it wants to run, or if it wants to run. Well, now it's almost silent. So I'll just zoom in there. There's our rotor. Now, usually, guys, okay, I'm just going to put a bit of a FYI or a PSA or whatever you want to call it. This usually is not the way this works. If you watch any of my other electric clock videos, you know I don't just stop here. This situation is very specific to certain types of clocks, such as this one. If it was mechanical, or if it was an older electric one made of metal that had screws and you could take it apart, I would pull the whole thing apart, because there's all kinds of old dirt and oil and all that crap in here. But because of what this is, and since it's mostly made of plastic, I don't think that's really necessary this time around. Because, you know, it's just plastic. There's very few metal pieces. And it's not dirty, first of all. So, you know, there's only so much I'm going to really do here with this particular one. Especially since you can't take it apart. So if it just needs a dab of oil every now and then, that's not the worst thing in the world. I'm surprised I even got this far into this thing. So, yeah, that's my kind of... This is not usually the way this is done, but this is also usually a method I don't recommend, but a lot of people do it anyway because they think it works for one reason or another. But really, you got dirty oil in all the pivot holes and all that, in the metal clocks, that is. And that's just going to wear your movement out. If you put new oil and start mixing old and new oil together like that, you're going to totally ruin all the bushings in your movement. All the places where all the pivots are, such as that one there. But again, since this is what this is, that's not really necessary. Okay, well, we'll just put it back together now. That's kind of what we're going to do. Okay. Yep, there's that. We're gonna... Getting that piece of plastic on there is going to be interesting. Oh, maybe I should wait till last, actually. We'll do that after. You know what? That should have been pulled off before. That was stupid of me. I should have pulled that. But I didn't know, right? You can't really... I can say how dumb I was all I want now, but thinking back, it's like, well, you kind of made a judgment call there for that alarm button, because if that thing didn't pull off, then you're just revving on something that's not meant to be pulled up like that. And it's not gonna like that, and it may actually just break in half. Let's just try this again here. See, suddenly that's 1,000 times more quiet than it was, you know, a little while ago. I'm surprised I was actually able to accomplish that, guys. I know that sounds ridiculous. All I did was dab some oil on it. But that's better than what I never thought I'd get that far. Okay. You know what? I may actually just let this run overnight just like this. Because if something goes wrong in here, I may want to pull this all apart again. Let's do that. That might be a smarter idea. Here's all the hands and everything. So these, yeah, if you have a Westclox Model S and it's something's wrong with it beyond what you've seen here, don't be afraid to get creative with it. Because, okay, yeah, there's the idea that it's, oh, you know, you may break it and all that stuff. Well, let's just go. I already mentioned this, but I'm going to mention this again. Let's say I gave this to my brother for his birthday, and he plugs it in, and the motor's making that really loud sound you heard earlier. He'll never use this thing. It will sit on a shelf, and he would never actually use it. And I'm trying to get him to actually use an electric alarm, or I'm trying to get him to use an alarm clock of some kind. Just any kind of alarm clock that isn't his phone. Everyone uses their phone nowadays, and I understand why you'd want to use your phone. I've used my phone, etc., you know. But these have a personality all of their own. They can do the same task with more character than your phone does. I don't know, the buzzers, the bells, all the cool stuff, all the different things, you know. They look nice. There's, you know, it's quite the... maybe I say you know too much, but there's all kinds of designs to these. There's more going on here than with your phone. So I'm, you know, as a Batman guy, I'm trying to get him to, you know, through this Westclox Model S here, actually use an alarm clock of some kind, and hopefully counter the whole alarm clocks are dying thing. You know, because everyone uses their phone or whatever else nowadays. So this is kind of his first. This might be his first and his only ever clock he ever has. I don't know. I mean, it's directly related to something that he's interested in. So if you guys are, yeah, like if you're worried about, you know, breaking one of these, taking it apart, just don't be, because I mean, it sits on a shelf. You can put if you break it somehow and it never runs again or whatever, you can always stick the dial and hands back on, and you'll never know the difference between a broken clock and one that's stopped. So, you know, that's my 2 cents on that. You really shouldn't be scared of breaking these things, because they're just sitting around anyway. I mean, the guy who sold this to me on Facebook Marketplace, he wasn't using this. This thing had probably been sitting forever. So my main points are: alarm clock good, phone bad. Go in here and do what you need to do. You know, if it breaks, that's a shame. I break stuff on this channel. I break older stuff on this channel, and it sucks. But you find out how to, you know, through that, you find out how to fix it. I definitely do not recommend, if this is your first time working on a clock, taking it apart, definitely do not start here. Because that has no screws or anything, and you can't even, you know. But who knows? Maybe these won't be broken. The only thing I can really think of that would even be broken on this, other than, you know, needing oil, and again, that's not even broken, is maybe a gear has actually split in half or something like that. But none of that has happened here, and it probably won't happen on the majority of these for a very, very, very long time. The Model S isn't one that is particularly special anyway. Again, I wouldn't have even looked at this if it wasn't themed, if it wasn't a themed clock. So, okay, there's my rant, guys. You can tell me to shut up now or skip through the video or whatever. Okay, so let's just try our alarm. Yeah, I'm going to keep this dial off here all night. We're going to see what we can come up with. Oh. Oh, okay. Maybe I turned that the wrong way. Oh, there she is. Okay. Okay, great. It's neat actually. It's neat seeing the different parts in there actually move as you play around with this. Like seeing the snooze button go up like that. Watching that whole thing go down. This thing has a 10-minute snooze on it. See that? If you start playing with the hands, it'll immediately go back up. But let's say you didn't do that and just push the snooze button down. Eventually, 10 minutes later, that thing would go back up. It does make a bit of a rattling sound. It's definitely quieter than it was if I even, you know, If I go back and look at the old video, or if you skip back to the beginning, this thing was screaming earlier, but it makes that buzzing sound a little bit, but that's not the end of the world. That's tolerable. That's more than tolerable. But yeah, what it was doing earlier was not. One more thing I'll say here, and then I'll move on, is this is 27 years old, this clock here. So my kind of thing that I've learned over the years with messing around with this stuff is if you want to use this stuff daily, it definitely needs to be maintained. It needs to be oiled, cleaned, etc. You will not get away with using it daily if it has not been maintained properly, because it will either stop or something will, if you buy something from an antique store that's labeled as working, that's great. But in my world, a lot of the time, it's like, okay, yeah, it's nice that the thing isn't complete, the coil isn't shorted, or some gear isn't, or the mainspring isn't broken, or something like that. But that's not an excuse to go, well, I guess it doesn't need anything since it still works. That term, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, that's only something you can apply to certain areas of life, and this is really not one of them. You will not get away with not maintaining something like this. And I didn't know what to expect. I mean, I couldn't get this thing apart at first, and I just went, you know what, let's just see what happens. Let's just test run it and see where it winds up. And surely enough, after a day or so of running, it starts screeching like that. And I'm sure, I wonder if the guy on Facebook Marketplace I got this from, I wonder if he even he must have known that. Like, he didn't put that anywhere in the description or anything like that, but he must have plugged this thing in and had it running for a while. I mean, I'm going to assume this probably wound up in some drawer or something. But at some point in his life, he must have went, oh, this thing is really loud. That's okay. Let me sell it on Marketplace and not tell anybody. Isn't that kind of sneaky? Yeah, you want to say stuff like that. But anyway, used but works for stuff this old, yeah, you're going to have to go in there and do something at some point, or take it to somebody who knows what to do. Old VCRs are probably a good example of that. I know I've heard horror stories about VCRs and how ridiculously complicated they can be sometimes. So I don't know. We'll see where I wind up in life, and if I ever wind up with a VCR. I don't know. But anyway, that's all I have to say on that. We, stopped recording and then tested it for a few hours, and it started making noise again. So what I did was I took it back apart, and then I ended up actually putting grease on the gears rather than just oil. And that was grease on the plastic gear teeth. And now this thing is nearly silent. It's not completely silent. You probably can't hear it right now. But once it's been running for a few hours, it will make a light sort of whirring noise. So it's not completely, dead quiet. And I don't think any electric clock is, especially after 20 plus years of use. They're all going to make some degree of noise. Anyway, my brother ended up liking this, so that's the key. Although he doesn't want to use it because the noise it makes, even if it is quiet. So, oh well, it's decorative in his room, as long as he likes it, right? Unfortunately, the time setting mechanism has just completely failed on me. If I pull the knob out and try and turn it, the hands don't move. The alarm setter works, but yeah, the time setting mechanism is not really all that interested in working anymore, which really sucks. I'm not sure if something's stripped or what the deal is in there. It won't spin either way, and you can just feel the knob not connecting to anything. So, I could tear this whole thing back apart, but again, we're at a point now where, again, he's not even using the clock, and even if he was, all you'd have to do is just wait till, let's say 12 a.m. or p.m., plug it in, and then use it from there. As long as you can kind of set your alarm, you're good. So, yeah, not the best situation, but also not the end of the world either. If I didn't mention it earlier, this thing is actually, really light. This This thing weighs nothing. It's heavier than a quartz movement, but still really light clock. So anyway, guys, that's my final words on, or those are my final words on this Batman and Robin Westclox Model S. This is made in Canada. Let's just go over this one more time. Oh, I can't read it. Made in Canada, or it's, oh no, wait, no, it's made in the USA. If I can focus the, there we go. Made in the USA. Yeah, kind of buy these types of things at your own risk, guys. If you fix this type of stuff, you know, good for you. All the best to you. Would love to get into contact with you and discuss how you even take these things apart. But you know, if you plan on using them and you don't plan on fixing it, well, chances are you're gonna run into problems like a month in or even a week into actually using one of these. So, in any case, Westclox Model S, really cheap, and yeah, it's from the 90s. Definitely a last generation electric analog clock. You know, this stuff would not have much longer to live. I don't think this would even last until the year 2000, or maybe just after the year 2000. The stuff like this would stop being produced in favor of battery operated digital and also electric digital. And I don't think, and of course quartz, you know, by 1997, quartz is already a thing, so quartz clocks are going to swoop in and totally undo this, totally take over from this here, because they're cheaper to make. So anyways, guys, that has been the Batman and Robin clock series. Hope you enjoyed it, hope you learned something, and if you ever run into these Westclox Model S's, maybe, I don't know, maybe you'll have like a game plan set up. Maybe this is preparing you for that. Anyways, thanks, guys.